Welcome back to the Leroy Glover Podcast. I'm your host, Leroy Glover, and today we're breaking down one simple truth. Life isn't meant to be lived on autopilot. Some people wander waiting for things to happen. Others achieve, making things happen. What's the difference? Intention. Successful people, whether in their careers, relationships, or personal growth, don't sit back and hope for success. They decide what they want and take steps to get there. And here's the key. They follow the same learning curve we all went through as toddlers. Think about it. When a toddler is learning to walk, they don't just stand up one day and start running. They crawl first. Then they stumble, fall, and get frustrated. But what do? They get back up. They keep trying, and eventually, they master it. That same principle applies to everything in life. Hear that again. That same principle applies to everything in life. Why do some people stay stuck? Most people react to life instead of shaping it. They wake up, go to work, scroll on their phones, and repeat, waiting for things to change. But without a clear goal, life feels stuck. It's like a toddler refusing to take their first step. They could walk, but fear of falling keeps them crawling. Imagine getting in a car with no destination. You'll drive in circles or end up somewhere random. That's what happens when we live without intention. How do achievers think differently? They know where they're going. They set goals and take small daily steps towards them. They don't wait for luck. They create opportunities. Ask a mountain climber how they got to the top. They won't say, I just wandered up here. No, they had a plan, discipline, and persistence. Just like a toddler learning to walk, they embrace the falls, keep stepping forward, and reach their goal. Your mind focuses on what you give attention to. The moment you get clear about your goals, you'll start seeing opportunities everywhere. So, what can you do right now? Write down one goal for your career, relationships, or personal growth. Every morning, ask yourself, what one small step can I take today? Trust the process. Growth isn't instant, but just like learning to walk, if you keep moving step by step, you'll get there. Life rewards action. If you're tired of feeling stuck or waiting for the right time, start today. Take 1 minute to write down a goal. Take one small step toward it. Please comment below and send me a message. What's your first goal? Thank you for tuning in to the Leroy Glover Podcast. You weren't meant to sit on the sidelines. Take action, move with purpose, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're diving deep today into living with purpose.
Ooh, I like that.
We're going to be using Leroy Glover's podcast, Live with Purpose, as our guide.
Awesome.
And I was really interested in his central analogy of learning to walk as a toddler as like a model for achieving any goal.
Yeah, it's a really powerful comparison when you think about it.
Yeah.
We all went through that process of stumbling and falling before we could walk.
Right.
And in a way, achieving any goal, big or small, follows a similar path.
Okay, I'm hooked.
Right.
So how does this actually play out in achieving our goals?
Well, Glover starts by observing that a lot of people simply react to life instead of actively shaping it. They're like that toddler who's hesitant to take those first steps for fear of falling.
I see what he's getting at, because we've all been there, right?
Yeah.
That feeling of being stuck, not knowing which direction to go in.
Absolutely.
Like driving around aimlessly with no destination in mind.
Yeah.
You'll end up somewhere, but it might not be where you actually want to be.
Yeah, and this is where Glover's insight about the achiever mindset comes in.
Okay.
He points out that successful people don't just sit around hoping for the best.
Right.
They set clear goals, and most importantly, they take consistent action, even if it's just small steps each day.
Yeah, and there's actually research from Harvard Business School
Oh, wow.
that shows that people who write down their goals are 42% more likely to achieve them.
Wow, that's huge.
So it's not just about thinking about it, it's about putting it out there, making it real.
42%. It's a pretty compelling statistic.
Yeah,
It really highlights the importance of taking those first steps, no matter how small they might seem.
for sure. And I think about like climbing a mountain.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect to just wander to the top, would you?
No.
It takes planning discipline and the resilience to keep going, even when you encounter setbacks.
Absolutely.
But I have to admit, sometimes those setbacks can feel pretty discouraging.
Oh, for sure.
How do you keep pushing forward when you stumble or even fall flat on your face?
That's where the toddler analogy comes back into play.
Okay.
Think about how a toddler learns to walk.
Yeah.
They fall countless times,
Uh-huh.
but they don't just give up. They get back up, try again, and eventually they're running around like it's the easiest thing in the world.
So it's about embracing those stumbles as part of the learning process.
Exactly. Each fall, each setback is actually an opportunity to learn to adjust and to get closer to your goal.
Right.
It's not about being perfect. It's about being persistent.
I like that. And one thing that really struck me about Leroy's approach is this idea that our minds tend to focus on what we give attention to. So if we're constantly dwelling on our failures, that's what's going to dominate our thoughts. But if we shift our focus to the progress we're making, even if it's just a tiny step, it can completely change our perspective.
You're absolutely right. There's actually a fascinating field of research called positive psychology that explores this very concept. Studies have shown that focusing on our strengths and successes can boost our motivation, increase our resilience, and even improve our overall well-being.
So it's like training our brains to look for the good, to celebrate those small wins along the way.
Precisely. It's a powerful shift in perspective that can have a ripple effect throughout our lives.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of intention, taking action, and reframing our mindset.
Right.
But I'm curious, what are some concrete steps we can take to start putting these ideas into practice?
Well, Leroy offers a really clear framework with 3 key steps. First, he emphasizes the importance of writing down your goal. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate, but the act of putting it on paper makes it more tangible, more real.
Right, it's like taking that first step from thinking about it to actually doing something about it.
Exactly.
But what about those times when we feel overwhelmed or uncertain about how to move forward?
That's where the second step comes in, identifying one small action you can take each day to move closer to your goal. It doesn't have to be anything huge, just a small, manageable step that you can commit to.
This is where a lot of people get stuck, right?
Yeah.
They feel like they need to make these massive leaps, and when they don't, they get discouraged.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is it's about consistency, about those small daily actions that build up over time.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that those small steps are not just about making progress. They're also about building momentum. Each step, no matter how small, reinforces your commitment and strengthens your belief in yourself.
This reminds me of that famous quote, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step."
Oh, I love that one.
It's not about seeing the whole staircase, it's about taking that first step and trusting that each subsequent step will reveal the next part of the journey.
That's a beautiful analogy. And it perfectly captures the essence of Leroy's third step, trusting the process.
Trusting the process. It sounds so simple, yet it can be incredibly challenging, can't it?
It can.
We live in a world that often values instant gratification, so it can be tough to embrace the idea of patiently working towards something over time.
You're absolutely right. And that's where the toddler analogy can be so helpful.
Okay.
Remember that toddler didn't just wake up one day and start walking perfectly. It took time, patience, and a whole lot of stumbles along the way.
So how do we cultivate that same kind of patience and trust in our own lives?
Well, one powerful strategy is to shift our focus from the end goal to the process itself. Instead of obsessing over the destination, we can learn to appreciate the journey, to find joy in the small victories, and to embrace the lessons that come from our mistakes.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about finding fulfillment in the journey itself, not just the outcome.
Precisely. And it's about recognizing that the journey is where we grow, where we learn, and where we discover our true potential.
So instead of getting caught up in the what ifs and the fears of failure, we can choose to focus on the present moment, on taking that next step, and on trusting that the path will unfold as it's meant to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a powerful shift in perspective that can liberate us from the shackles of doubt and fear and allow us to embrace the journey with a sense of curiosity, excitement, and even a little bit of childlike wonder.
I love that. It's like rediscovering that inner toddler within us, that sense of fearless exploration and unwavering determination to keep going no matter what.
You've got it. It's about tapping into that inner resilience, that innate capacity for growth and transformation that we all possess. And here's where it gets really fascinating. As you start taking those steps and trusting the process, you'll likely notice something pretty amazing start to happen.
Oh, what's that?
You'll start to see opportunities you might have missed before. It's almost like the universe conspires to help you along your path once you set a clear intention.
Okay, I've totally experienced that. It's like when you learn a new word and suddenly you start hearing it everywhere. It's not that the word is new, it's just that you're now attuned to it.
That's a great analogy. Our brains are incredible at filtering information.
Yeah.
When we set a goal, it's like we're telling our brain, hey, this is important. Pay attention to anything related to this.
So instead of feeling lost and overwhelmed, we become more focused and alert to possibilities that align with our goals.
Precisely. And that can make all the difference in achieving those goals.
So let's make this really practical for our listeners. Let's say someone's goal is to write a book. That can feel like a pretty daunting task, right?
Absolutely. But remember what we've been talking about, breaking things down into smaller steps. Instead of thinking, I need to write an entire book, what if you started with, I'm going to write for 30 minutes every day?
Oh yeah, that feels so much more manageable.
Right.
It's not about writing the perfect first draft, it's about building the habit and consistency.
Exactly. And then you can gradually increase the complexity of your steps. Maybe one week you focus on brainstorming ideas, the next week you start outlining chapters, and so on.
So it's about building momentum one small step at a time until you eventually reach the summit of your goal.
You got it. And along the way, remember to celebrate those small wins. It's like giving yourself a little pat on the back for each step you take in the right direction.
I love that. It's about acknowledging the progress we're making, no matter how small it might seem. And speaking of progress, one thing Leroy talks about is how our minds tend to focus on what we feed them. If we're constantly dwelling on our failures or setbacks, that's what's going to dominate our thoughts. But if we shift our focus to the progress we're making, even if it's just a tiny step, we can completely change our perspective.
That's such a powerful insight, and it ties in beautifully with the work of Carol Dweck, who's done extensive research on growth mindset. She found that people who believe their abilities can be developed are more likely to embrace challenges, persist in the face of setbacks, and ultimately achieve higher levels of success.
So it's not just about taking action, it's about cultivating a belief in our own capacity to grow and learn along the way.
Exactly. It's about embracing the idea that we are not fixed entities, but rather we are constantly evolving and becoming more than we were yesterday.
This is so inspiring. It's like giving ourselves permission to stumble, to make mistakes, and to learn from those experiences.
And that's the beauty of embracing a growth mindset. It frees us from the fear of failure and allows us to approach challenges with a sense of curiosity and excitement.
So instead of seeing setbacks as roadblocks, we can view them as detours that might actually lead us to something even more amazing than what we originally envisioned.
You got it. And sometimes those detours turn out to be the most scenic and rewarding part of the journey.
Okay, I'm ready to embrace some detours. But I have to ask, how do we stay motivated when the going gets tough? How do we push through those moments of doubt and self-sabotage that can creep in?
That's a great question, and one that many people struggle with. One powerful strategy is to connect with your why. Why is this goal important to you? What impact do you hope to make by achieving it?
So it's about tapping into the deeper meaning behind our goals. Reminding ourselves of the bigger picture when we start to lose sight of it in the day-to-day grind.
Exactly. It's like having a North Star that guides you through the fog and uncertainty. When you feel tempted to give up, connect back to that why and let it fuel your motivation.
That's such a powerful reminder. And speaking of reminders, I love how Leroy emphasizes the importance of creating systems and structures that support our goals. It's not just about willpower, it's about setting ourselves up for success by designing an environment that makes it easier to stay on track.
Absolutely. It's about being proactive and intentional in creating an environment that supports your goals. If your goal is to eat healthier, for example, that might mean stocking your fridge with healthy foods and clearing out the junk food.
Right, or if your goal is to write more, it might mean setting aside dedicated writing time each day. and eliminating distractions from your workspace.
Exactly. It's about setting yourself up for success by removing as many obstacles as possible.
So it's not just about having a goal, it's about creating a system that makes it easier to achieve that goal.
You got it. It's about working smarter, not harder.
This is making so much sense. And it really speaks to the importance of being mindful of our surroundings and how they can either support or hinder our progress.
Absolutely. And it's not just about our physical environment, it's also about our social environment. The people we surround ourselves with can have a huge impact on our motivation and our ability to achieve our goals.
Yeah, that's so true. If you're trying to quit smoking, for example, it's probably not a good idea to hang out with people who smoke all the time.
Exactly. Surround yourself with people who support your goals, who inspire you, and who challenge you to grow.
This is so powerful. It's like building a cheerleading squad for your dreams.
I love that analogy. And remember, you don't have to do it alone. There are so many resources and communities out there to support you on your journey.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of setting goals, taking action, creating supportive systems, and surrounding ourselves with the right people. But what about those times when we inevitably hit a roadblock? How do we bounce back from setbacks and keep moving forward?
That's a crucial question, and one that Leroy addresses beautifully in his podcast. He reminds us that setbacks are not failures. They're simply feedback. They're opportunities to learn, to adjust, and to come back even stronger.
Okay, that's a really helpful reframing. So instead of getting discouraged and giving up, we can choose to view setbacks as valuable learning experiences.
Exactly. And that's where resilience comes in. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from adversity, to adapt to challenges, and to keep moving forward even when things get tough.
So resilience isn't about being immune to setbacks. It's about having the strength and flexibility to navigate them and come out stronger on the other side.
You got it. It's about embracing the ups and downs of life and recognizing that they're all part of the journey.
This is so empowering. It's like giving ourselves permission to stumble and to know that it's okay, we can get back up and keep going.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And remember, you don't have to be perfect. In fact, striving for perfection can actually be a major obstacle to achieving your goals.
Oh, I've definitely been there. It's so easy to get caught up in the all or nothing mentality and feel like if we can't do something perfectly, we might as well not do it at all.
Absolutely. And that's where self-compassion comes in. It's about being kind to ourselves, acknowledging our imperfections, and recognizing that we are all works in progress.
So instead of beating ourselves up for our mistakes, we can choose to view them as opportunities for growth and learning.
Exactly. And remember, everyone makes mistakes. It's part of being human. What matters is how we choose to respond to those mistakes. Do we let them define us, or do we use them as fuel to learn to grow and to become even stronger?
That's such a powerful perspective shift. And it really speaks to the importance of cultivating a growth mindset and embracing the journey, imperfections, and all.
You got it. And remember, the journey is where the magic happens. It's where we discover our strengths, overcome our challenges, and ultimately become the best versions of ourselves.
This has been such an insightful conversation. I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for approaching my goals with more clarity, confidence, and resilience.
Me too. And remember, it all starts with that first step. Don't let fear or doubt hold you back. Embrace the journey, trust the process, and never stop believing in your own amazing potential.
So what's the biggest takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with today? What's the one thing you hope they'll remember long after this deep dive is over?
I think the most important takeaway is that you have the power to create the life you desire. It's not about waiting for things to happen. It's about actively shaping your own destiny. And it all starts with taking that first step, no matter how small it might seem.
That's such a powerful message. And it reminds me of something Leroy said in his podcast, Life Rewards Action. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about taking action right now in this very moment.
Absolutely. And remember, you don't have to do it alone. There are so many resources and communities out there to support you on your journey. Reach out, connect, and let's do this together.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to go back to that analogy of learning to walk as a toddler.
Yeah, such a good one.
It really brings it all together.
It does. It's such a vivid and relatable way to understand the process of achieving any goal.
Yeah.
Remember, that toddler didn't just magically start walking perfectly overnight.
Right.
It took tons of attempts, stumbles, and falls before they finally mastered it.
And each one of those falls was a step closer to walking. So if we think like that about our own goals, we can look at setbacks as valuable learning experiences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just like that toddler, we have to embrace the messiness of the process.
Yeah.
Experiment, fail, learn from our mistakes.
Yeah.
It's not about being perfect.
You're right.
It's about being persistent.
I like that. So if you're listening and you're maybe feeling a bit overwhelmed by a big goal, just remember, it all starts with that first step.
Yeah.
What's one small action you can take today to get closer to where you want to be?
Maybe it's writing down your goal, researching a new skill, or even just talking to someone who inspires you.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be anything huge. Just take that first step and trust that the path will unfold as you continue to move forward.
So you don't have to have all the answers now. You just have to take the first step and trust that you'll figure it out along the way.
Exactly.
And you're not alone in this journey, right? There are so many people who are also trying to live with more purpose and intention.
Oh, yeah.
So connect with them, share your experiences, and support each other along the way.
It's so important to have that community.
Yeah, this has been such an inspiring conversation. I feel like I've got a whole new set of tools for approaching my goals with more clarity, confidence, and resilience.
Me too.
Now, before we go, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought-provoking question.
Okay. I like it.
If we think about the toddler analogy again, but we apply it to big challenges we face as a society, like climate change or social injustice, what would our first steps as a society look like? What little things can we do individually and collectively to make a better world for ourselves and future generations? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, please keep the conversation going. Share your thoughts, your goals, your struggles, and your triumphs with us.
Because we're all in this together, learning, growing, and striving to live lives that are both meaningful and fulfilling.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's it for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.